Let's see what's happening. Is just all together share the pranava, remembering the pronunciation of Om, and experiencing for yourself how long you want to hold a, u, or It's very individual to each of you. And then we'll go to the Shakti mantra of Shreem. Shreem is one of the Shakti mantras of Kamala. Karen, you have to just talk to me in real words. Sorry. Do I need to change something?
Oh, I just sent you some instructions I found.
Okay, we'll do it later. This is working, I think.
Okay.
All right, inhale, hands to heart center. Take a few cleansing breaths here. Allowing the body to relax and the thoughts to relax. And let's share the pranava 8 times, taking a breath in. Shanti, shanti, shanti. And then sharing Shreem, a very powerful Shakti mantra 8 times, followed by Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Take a breath in. Shreem, 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 Shreem. Shanti, shanti, shanti. And take a breath in, open the eyes, exhale, and release. So you noticed in the second mantra, the sh sound. Sh as in Shanti, sh as in Shreem. The sh sound, the sh, in Sanskrit, that is the divine sound of peace. And so you'll see a lot of the Shakti mantras will have an sh in it. So let me go to sharing of our screen as we look at the Tripura, Sundari, and Kamala. One sec. All right. So before we get into it too much, this is the homework for tonight. I really like you to take a look at this 55-minute YouTube by Sri M. He gives a really, really nice, simple description of Tantric yoga, and he differentiates it from Vedanta and from yoga. Because remember, yoga is one of the 6 schools we find in the Vedas, but there's so much more. It's such a broad category. And he does a very nice explanation of how they differ. And in describing Tantra and the Tantric practice, remember from our first day's lecture, we discussed tattvas, the elements, the evolutes within the system. We talked about the 4 elements of speech and where they live. We talked about the 3 bodies within the 5 kosha system. And he touches on all these things in a really nice way that I think helps to meld the philosophical viewpoint of the goddesses and the tantric practice. He also talks about the divine energy within Shakti, which helps us to destroy ignorance. And how we do that. What does ignorance mean in the context of yoga and tantra? What does that word mean? And what does knowledge, true knowledge, mean? What does transcendence mean? What does ahimkara, what does maha really mean? And he goes into very nice descriptions of this. So as you're watching that YouTube, look for these words when he talks about Tantra, Tripura, Sundari, because the lecture actually is called Sundarya Liri. And it's one of the sutras. There are many, many sutras in Indian thought. And this is one of them. Tripura Sundari is also known as Lalita. And so you'll see, she has actually, I think, 1,008 names. So he goes into, I think, a very rich description of the energy that she helps you find within yourself. He talks about the 3 cities and 3 different chakra centers. He talks about the mantras in chanting a mantra. And this is really important and something that I wanted to talk about. Mantras, the proper chanting of mantras, it's not just knowing the proper pronunciation. And for those who have studied a little bit of Sanskrit, you know that the pronunciation comes from 5 different places within the throat. But when we are doing mantra, technically, we're also following a certain meter, like Gayatri is a meter. We know it as the Gayatri mantra. We think, okay, that's just one mantra. But no, Gayatri is actually a poetic meter, of which the most famous one is the Gayatri mantra that we all know that comes from the Vedas. So there is a certain mantra for each of these Shakti mantras. And in order to connect with that divine energy of the sound vibration, technically you want to know how to do this. Now, I don't know. I don't know all the proper ways to do it. I'm learning this, and I think for me, it's something that I really need a guru to help me with, but something to know about. He talks about the role of the elements, and especially when we look at Tripura Sundari, remember she is queen of all the elements. And that's a very important part of Tantra, of understanding the role of earth, water, fire, space, and ether. Also, he talks about the direction of the bindu as it ascends and descends through the nadis, through the chakra centers. He talks about the significance of the Shiva Shakti merger, which is how in Tantra they define transcendence. So it's a very good YouTube to watch, and I hope you all have time to watch it today before tomorrow. If you find that you're quite intrigued after listening to his YouTube about the goddess Lalita or Sundari, please watch this video. It's a shorter one, and it's so lovely. Remember the Sanskrit channel with that guy who kind of stands like this all the time? So he goes into a little bit more detail about the role of meter and pronunciation within mantra chanting, especially in the context of the goddesses. So let's look at Tripura Sundari. She is the subtle and the causal energy of what they call beauty and dance, bliss and happiness, which is all encompassed in true knowledge with a capital K. So true knowledge is housed here in the abode of the heart, of the spiritual heart. So she is beauty beyond form and name. So she's beyond the world of duality. So she's within the non-dual realm of consciousness. And by chanting her mantra, by meditating upon her form or her abstract concept, we can find that energy within ourselves to transcend beyond duality and really merge with that supreme consciousness. So this is why she's also known as the goddess of Vedantic wisdom, because remember, Vedas are very, very strongly non-dualistic. Oh, 1 second. Yes?
Mom, I just tried to unmute myself and talk to you, and it seems like you couldn't hear me, but we can't see your shared screen.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Let's see if this works. Okay. I'm going to have you unmuted, Kieran, just in case. I'm sorry, everybody. Let's go back, although it will be on the recording. Okay, so here we have the homework in the YouTube. So you can take a screenshot of this, or like we'll try and get it up to the YouTube as soon as we can. So this is Shri M. Then if you're more intrigued, here's the second YouTube through the Sanskrit channel. Now, when we look at Goddess Tripura Sundari, also known as Lalita, she is the goddess of Vedic wisdom because she really embodies the whole concept of non-dualism. She really embodies the concept of the Shiva Shakti mergence, and that is our goal of the practice. That is the goal of walking along this particular spiritual path. And in the book by Frawley on page 86, he says, oops, sorry, I think I'm missing something again. No. He also talks about her being the goddess of the Kundalini. So for people who are really interested in Kundalini and chakras and nadis, take a closer look at Tantra and the Shakti goddess. So it says here that Tantra is not only the transforming word, Vak, which we talked about with Tara Matangi, but she's the energy of consciousness, and she's the power of knowledge. And here we see Tripura Sundari as true knowledge, not just the knowledge that we understand how a tree grows, but the causal, the potential energy behind that. When we talk about Tripura Sundari as representing the three cities, okay, here we go. What are we talking about in the three cities? Well, remember the three bodies? The Shtula Sharia, the Sukshma in the Qurana that was in the first day. She is queen of all three bodies. So that means that it's not only your gross physical senses, but your refined, subtle, energetic anatomy behind those senses, but even further behind the very, very subtle elements, the bhutas, that you find in the Karana Sharira, which encompasses the Ahamkara and the Maha. So she is the ruler of all that. On top of that, she's the ruler of the whole universe. She encompasses Tantra. She is a form of Kali, but a much bigger or more expansive definition of it. Sorry, 1 second. I'm getting a message and I don't know if it's from someone in our class. 1 second. No, I think it's okay. So let's look again. When we talk about Tripura, Sundari as the three cities, as the elements, as the evolutes within Tattva, we can see that she encompasses all physical matter, which is earth, the Sthula Sariya. She is found in this, what we call the waking state of consciousness. Remember the picture of Om, the image of Om, and how each circle, as you draw Om, represented either the waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state, Maya, that veil of illusion, or the actual supreme consciousness. So you can think of her in that way too, that she represents that curve of waking consciousness. She is also found at the more refined, subtle energy consciousness at the Vishuddhi chakra. She is found within the Karana Sharia, the most causal sheath, here at the heart. That is the seat of true wisdom. So also, if you follow Krishnamacharya, and then his grandson Kaustubh Desikachar, they talk a lot in their schools about the true wisdom and the true knowledge from the heart and at the heart. So this is when we ascend to that consciousness that is beyond this mind-body complex. It is beyond ahamkara. It is beyond the limitations and the qualities of the gunas. Why is she called Lalita? Lalita is to play. And as you, at least in my experience, when I've met more enlightened people than me, they are so lighthearted, and they all tell you to approach, or they all invite you to approach your practice in a really playful manner. They go, play, explore, and that is a central tenet of Tantra, to use all of the gifts that Mother Divine has here in this universe for us to experience, and then to the best of our ability to see beyond simply earth and trees, and what is the subtle energy behind that, and what is the causal energy behind that. Even Kamala, the goddess Kamala, which is on the surface, she is the goddess of the outer beauty, where Sundari is the beauty of true knowledge and true wisdom. Kamala is the beauty that we see all around us. But even that, the lesson that Kamala gives us is to ask us play, find bliss, find happiness in all this that you can see with your senses, as a way, as a lesson to then go deeper on your spiritual path and see behind that. So Lalita is represented as a young girl. She's represented as dancing and very light. All these different qualities to connect with some part of us that says, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. I want to go deeper and understand what beauty really means. When we say that she is Raja Rashvarya, that is, she's queen of the universe, queen of all the worlds. And in yoga thought, in yoga belief, they believe that we are not just this one galaxy that we live in. They believe that there are millions of galaxies, millions of universes, different sentient consciousnesses that are all going along their spiritual belief and their spiritual journey at any one time. It's all happening. And so she is the queen of all that. So then we pull back and say, okay, she's queen of all this very expansive concept. Perhaps that is hard for us to wrap our head around. So then we go, okay, let's go back to true knowledge and consciousness. So here, what I find fascinating about the study of yoga is the way they can really parse the word consciousness. We already saw consciousness in terms of the image of Om, 3 different consciousnesses there. Tuesday, we talked about consciousness in the 4 different samadhis, the different ways of meditating and experiencing meditation. We see her here when we talk about consciousness in terms of the physical, the energetic, or the causal bodies. So she encompasses all of those definitions and all of those experiences. She's also known as the moon. Here we have Soma, or Amrit, which on the physical plane, you could say it's a divine liquid. So she represents that divine liquid, the Amrit, which descends from the Ajna chakra down to the Kundalini. And when we say Kundalini, that's actually a misnomer. This Amrit goes all the way down to the Kanda. The Kanda is the bulb at the Muladhara chakra. And that is where we have the coiled snake. So interesting, right? We have the image, we have the abstract idea of the coiled snake or the bulb. But what is that? That's just the energy of spiritualization. So when that energy is activated, and it is activated through true knowledge, true wisdom, meditative experiences, then that Amrit then ascends through the Sushumna channel, clearing, I would say it's clearing obstacles within each chakra energetic unit, rising up to the Ajna chakra and then up to the crown chakra. And why? For clear perception. And once you have clear perception within Tantra, that means that you experience transcendence. You experience that which is beyond the duality of this mind-body complex that we live within. Now, very interesting, especially when you watch the Sri YouTube, is the Sri Vidya in this mantra. And it's so cool because he starts the 55-minute talk saying, I can't tell you, because I can't tell you the mantra. That the guru has to tell you, or you have to read the Sundari Liri, which is the sutras. You have to read it and you have to find it yourself. This is not something that anyone can give you. So then right away you start getting a little intrigued and you think, oh, what is this about mantra? And by the end, he starts reading a little bit of the sutras. He goes, oh, wait, it's right here. It says what the mantra is. So then he gives us the mantra. But then he says, but you know what? That's not how you pronounce it. He goes, you will not get really the benefits of this mantra just by saying ka, ila, ilam, hirim, or whatever. So then he goes into the meter, the matra, and how important that is, the timing of that. So this is why when we do mantra chanting, when it really becomes part of your practice, you're going to want to delve even deeper into the subject and learn what are the antecedents behind mantra, what are the technicalities of mantra, just as we're doing right now. You're all students of yoga, but we now know that yoga is so much more than what we first learned perhaps in the yoga studio. And the more you learn, the more open and expansive you find this whole subject is. And the same thing with mantra, the same thing with Tantra. One of the best ways, according to Frawley, to meditate upon Tripura Sundari is to simply ask your question, who am I? And I think anyone who's done the 200-hour course with me, you know that question gets asked daily. Who am I? That when you walk the yogic spiritual path, that is the main question. And I remember when, some of you know the story, when I came to India on my own, just gotten off, I don't know, like 30 some hours, I went to my friend in New Delhi and she goes, no, they're giving a talk on the Gita right now. Get in the driver's car and go. I said, oh my God. So I went to it was like a 10-day course on the Gita. And it was so interesting because the very first thing this man said, He goes, who am I? He goes, that is the central question that the Gita asks. That is the central question within Indian thought, is to find out that question. And to know who I am, we have to really start deconstructing I. Are we a physical body? Are we a mind? Are we a consciousness? And then, oh my gosh, consciousness is huge. What is consciousness? What are the different levels of consciousness? And you go on and on and on. But then once you start looking at consciousness, then you start looking at more refinements of the elements that are all around us. So then you start looking at water, fire, earth, space, ether. Okay, what does that really mean? How can I understand it? How do I, my powers of cognition and perception, and how that changes over time. And it always comes back to do your practice. When you do your practice, meditation, following the 8 limbs of yoga, tantric practice, meditating upon the wonderful qualities and the energy that the goddesses represent, and can help you find within yourself to activate that kundalini. How does that clarify and refine your perception of the question and of the answer, who am I? So these are all wonderful things that Tripura Sundari can help us with. Let's look at her form and her her mantras. But let's look at her form first. All right, here we are, right back into those elements. So she's sitting on a cot with the 5 forms of Lord Shiva. So in Hindu thought, it's not that there's a million gods, as much as there are millions of avatars or particular qualities of one God. And so here we have, of the pure consciousness, we can look at pure consciousness and divide it into 5 forms. So you have Lord Brahman, who is the earth element. And just to understand the video with Shriyam, Priti, Prithi, is the Sanskrit word for earth, because he will mention that. So Brahman is the earth element, and it's one of the parts of the kat. Vishnu is water element, Rudra, fire, Maheshvara, air element, Sadashiva is the ether. And so they all represent what is pure consciousness. So let's look at it a different way, and probably this definition you've seen before. Brahman is creation. Vishnu is to sustain. Rudra is the destruction and the renewal. Because remember, in the Indian belief system, time is not linear. It goes in cycles, which is why when we study the yantras, you see the circle, that form, that geometric form, is so dominant within the yantras and mandalas. Because according to them, human beings, this earth has gone through thousands of cycles in the lifetime. And that cycle takes the form of creation, being sustained over time, and then it begins to deteriorate, and then it is destroyed, however you want to define destroyed, and then it starts all over again. And within those 4 periods, or yugs, you have different qualities in terms of spirituality, which then gets manifested in the grosser form. But in the first yug of creation, there's a higher vibration of consciousness, meaning in this sense, there is a higher vibration in connection to Purusha. So you're living within the realm of Mother Divine, even though it's veiled with Maya. The collective consciousness of humanity is at a frequency where that transcendence is more easily experienced. In the second yuga, that vibration is a little bit lower, so it's not as harmonious. There's some dissonance now coming in. And of course, when we see that dissonance, that also is manifested in terms of human behavior. So following the yamas and niyamas may not be as pure as what we found in the first yuga. Then you go down to the third yuga, where there's more degradation of that vibrational frequency and of human behavior towards one another and along personal spiritual paths. And then in the Kali Yuga, which the belief is that we are now in the Kali Yuga, the belief is that the consciousness, the collective consciousness of humanity is at such a dissonance with that beautiful harmony and bliss of the Shiva Shakti emergence, of the beautiful bliss that Tripura Sundari represents, that the manifestation now at the gross level of human beings, how they interact, is also at a very low level. At some point, this will implode, and then the cycle starts all over again. So it's not so much like my understanding of Christianity, where it's a bit linear, the line. You live, you die, go to heaven or hell. I mean, no, that's very simplistic, and I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't know too much about it. But this is more cyclical. And that's why they also believe in that you live 84 million lives as you figure out, who am I? That's the Dharma. That's the law of the universe, to figure this out according to the Indian thought. Okay, so let's go right back. Let's go back to her again. So if Brahman is creation, Vishnu to sustain, Rudra destruction, Maheshwara, Sadashiva, she is sitting on top of them or laying on top of the cot of them. Because in Tantra, and remember, she really embodies Tantric thought. Shiva cannot manifest without the energy and wisdom of Shakti. So this is what is representing in this image. All right, she has the crescent moon on her head. Again, remember we talked about Soma, and we know the feminine qualities of the moon. We've talked about that when we talked about the Ida and Pingala nadis, the merge into the Sushumna. She has 4 arms. She carries a bow and 5 flower arrows. The bow is made out of sugarcane. I don't really know the significance of the sugarcane bow, why that material is important. But the arrows are flowers, and they represent the 5 senses. The bow represents the mind. So here, remember, we're going back to the tattvas of Samkhya philosophy, the senses, senses of the organs, the senses of action, and the mind, your powers of cognition. And she's saying that she can help you energize your own spiritual prowess in order to gain control of your senses. That's a central part of yoga and tantra, is understanding the role that your physical senses play in experiencing the Mother Divine that's all around us and then going beyond. She also carries a noose and a hook. And that's pretty cool too, because with her beautiful image, on some level, she's also saying, I can entice you to see me, to really see me, to really understand what true knowledge is. And then I can cut off your attachment to this world of the sense objects. And again, that's another really important part of Tantra and yoga, is use your organs of action, use your hands to mold and do things, use your feet to go somewhere, use your eyes, your nose, use all your senses to experience this life here. But with an understanding that there's much more than simply the act of eating, or simply looking at the beauty, not simply looking, but looking at the beauty of a flower. There's more than just that flower. What is the subtle energy behind it? And her image entices us, intrigues us to look beyond just the physical world that we see. Kamala, she's also very enticing in different ways. And if you look at the Hindu version, rather than just the Tantric version of her, she's also known as the goddess of Lakshmi, which is of wealth. But here again, in yoga, what does wealth mean? For the yogi who is on the path of spirituality, wealth means true knowledge. Just as bliss and dance and laugh and play under Sundari means to experience true knowledge and true wisdom at the heart, Kamala is saying, yes, here I am on the grosser level of manifestation, and perhaps that grosser level of consciousness, the waking state. But there's so much more behind me. So enjoy this and then see what's behind. So she's also known as the goddess of Lakshmi. Her symbol is the lotus. And I think most of us have also seen that the lotus grows up from the mud, but does not get soiled by the mud. So she has that wonderful symbolism of transcendence there, of using your senses, but not being attached to your senses, not being attached to this grosser manifestation of experience, but going beyond. As the practice of yoga, okay, I think we've kind of said, what is yoga? Well, if we look at the sutras, the very second sutra tells us that it is the cessation of the mind stuff. It is the cessation of all the vrittis, the obstacles that are going in and out of your consciousness that inhibit you from true perception of Mother Divine, which is all around us. And so she is the practice of yoga. She is found at the Anahata chakra, the heart chakra. And her mantra is Shreem, which we practice. If you go back to what we spoke about on Tuesday, the 4 levels of samadhi. So I'm talking about meditation right now. She offers a really wonderful and accessible way of meditating upon her beauty by taking an object and meditating upon that object. Because if you look at Sutra 141, so that's Pada, chapter 1, Sutra 41, the meditator takes on the qualities of the object of meditation. So for some people, in their meditation practice, that experience of samadhi is accessible when they actually have something physical to look at, like a picture of Kamala or a flower or something. For other people, visualization is not so easy, so they will go to the sound, the divine sound of Shreem. For other people, the sound vibration is not so easily accessible, or the visualization of her form or a beautiful object. So they may use their powers of cognition and think about the abstract idea of Kamala as representing true knowledge and true wisdom. She sits upon a lotus. Again, the lotus is a very symbolic part of yoga and Indian thought. She has 4 arms. 2 of the mudras are to dispel fear and ignorance and grant desires. And this is interesting, the granting of desires, because remember, she is of the realm, in some ways, at the very grossest manifestation. So we experience her through the Shtula Sharia, okay, the physical body, through our senses and our mind. We experience her there, but then she's also asking us to look beyond. So when we ask for desires, and you look at her as the goddess of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, um, some devotees will say, please, please give me money, please give me wealth, please give me a big house, please give me a big car, whatever. And that's not a bad thing if we're not attached to it. Because remember, in Indian thought, in the all-encompassing Indian thought, remember the Artha Purushas? They say, yeah, you have a right to kama, to desires, to happiness, to making a living, to following your dharma, playing out your role that you have been given, or that you have actually through karma have landed in this life, and you have the right to moksha, or liberation of the duality, of the limitations of the mind-body complex. So she said she can grant those desires on many different levels of consciousness. She holds 2 lotus flowers, again, the symbolism of what the lotus means. She has 2 beautiful elephants showering her with water. Here, the lotus symbolizes spiritual unfoldment. Water symbolizes love and spiritual blessings. Her golden skin symbolizes perception. And just as consciousness is a word worthy of deep contemplation, so is perception. On what level of consciousness do you perceive? Or do you manifest devotion also? So her form, I like this part at the end, denotes abundance and the infinity. So here we go. She is the last goddess. But here we go all the way back to Kali and time, that eternal present moment, infinity. So let's open ourselves up to discussion or questions. Karen, you'll be the moderator.
Sure. What wonderful goddesses. Azadeh has a question. Do you want to unmute and ask, Azadeh?
Yes, I have a couple of questions about the Shri Yantras that we could also use as visualizations. Do we go to them? And the second one is, what is Bija mantra? Is there any difference between Bija mantra and mantra?
Yes. So thank you. The Shri Yantra, I'd like to say the yantras, for once we've gone through all the goddesses in their representation as mantra and images, and then I'll get to the yantra, okay? Because what I'm hoping to do is that as we go through the 10 goddesses, we're going to understand what the practice of Tantra is and what the supporting belief of Tantra is, as represented by the Mother Divine. And if we start throwing in the symbolism of the yantras, I think it may become too abstract and overwhelming to understand. So that's one thing. But you're welcome to Google it yourself, Azadeh, as you like. Okay, Bija. Bija means seed in Sanskrit. And I'm trying to think who I just saw who said it. It might have been Shri M also. The Bija sound is the seed sound. So it's not that it is so much an alphabet of Sanskrit as much as it is a vibration to energize. So this is important. When Karen and I were in Chennai together, I don't know if you remember this, but our mantra teacher, that lady, she said, some people are not comfortable chanting Om or any of the other Bija sounds. So she said, just say wow or say goody or whatever is good for them. Because we're trying to get a certain sound frequency to be manifested and for them to feel inside. So it doesn't have to be Om. Of course, in this belief system, when we look at Sanskrit, we believe that these vibrations are very particular. So the Bija sound for each mantra is sort of the intense shortcut energy activation for that goddess. Just like each chakra has a bija sound, lam, vam, ram, yum, hum, om, the same thing with the goddesses. So they have a short mantra, and then they have a longer mantra. And then remember in the beginning, I spoke about Gayatri. Well, each goddess has a Gayatri meter, poetic meter mantra also. So when we talk about bija, it's just the short activating energy sound to activate that, whatever it is that she represents. Does that help, Azadeh?
So it's a difference between the mantra that we're using and the bija mantra?
The bija mantra, let's say for Kamala, was Shrim, right? So that, you can just use Shrim. You can also look up her Gayatri mantra, which is going to be a longer one. But remember, the cool thing about mantra is that Om encompasses all the sounds within Sanskrit, which means it encompasses all the divine vibrations and harmonies in just Om. Now, Shrim has its own very particular qualities, and oh, you can't see it because I don't think, but if you get the book Mantra Yoga and Primal Sound by David Frawley, this is an incredible primer on understanding what each syllable, each sound, each combination of sounds means in Sanskrit. Like, we've gotten just a little bit of it in this class where we talk about their mantra. So let's go back to Sundari mantra. Remember, I told you that Sri M talks about it, and it seems to be very secretive and intriguing. But the first line of the Sri Vidya, and interesting, think about this. We know Vidya means knowledge or wisdom, right? We know that from the sutras because that word is everywhere. So the Sri Vidya is 15 syllables long for Sundari. Ka-e-i-la, followed by Hrim. It's written in the Word document that you have. The second one is Ka, Sa, Ka, Ha, La, followed by Hrim, which is an activating sound. The last one is Sa, Ka, La, Hrim. All right, it's there's a YouTube reference to it in the document I gave you. So let's look at it from this point of view. The first line represents what they call the head of Sundari or Vak. Remember the 4 elements of speech? So Vak is actual speech. The second line represents Sundari from the neck to her hips. So these are divine sound vibrations, which, okay, from here to the hip is your heart. So true knowledge, true wisdom. Then the third, Sakala, represents the goddess from the hips downward, and that is the power of Shakti transformation. So let's make sense of that. If the last line of her mantra is from the hips down to the feet, we have passed through the Muladhara, right? We've passed through the Kanda, where the coiled serpent lies. That coiled serpent, that energy of Shakti, is the energy of transformation. So we see how these mantras are so complex. It's not just the wonderful sounds, because Frawley goes on to tell us that Ka, the very first sound in her 15-syllable mantra, represents desire or the creator. And remember, when we look at the 3 cities, she is representative of the 3 cities. That's Brahman, Lord Brahman, creation. E, or A, is Maya. Maya we know as Prakriti, as the veil of illusion. Then E is Vishnu. Okay, he's the Lord of sustaining. He's also called the ruling deity in this case. La, remember guys, Lalita? La is the power of bliss. So then we go to the second line in her mantra. Ha, space or breath. Think of the mantra Soham or Ham So. Sa is time. Ka, again, is creation. Ha, the second time, is your spiritual energy, which is renewed through prana. Prana at the level of respiration, prana at the subtle level of moving through the nadi channels. La, again, is bliss. And then at the third level, sa is eternity in the concept of totality. Okay, this is really cool. Think Kali, eternity, time. Think concept of totality. Think about the geometric form of a circle and the endless cycles of yugas that Tantra and Indian thought are premised on. Ka is the origin, which is unknown, could be unknown. La, again, is bliss. So we can look at these mantras, again, from just a simple bija, like the chakras, or there are these incredible, intriguing, and complex longer mantras. And if you are more intrigued, you look at the Sundari Lahiri, which is in the Sanskrit channel. Remember, I gave in the PowerPoint, I gave the YouTube. That's just like pre-kindergarten. It's just a wonderful introduction to these sounds, to these 15 sounds. And some people, that is their meditation, the Sri Vidya with the yantra, and they spend their whole time meditating there upon that form. Kieran?
Thank you so much, Corinne. It was really helpful.
Carrie has a question, and then I believe Sharon does as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, what was my question?
Sorry, Terry, I gave a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, good information. I just got into listening to it and I thought, I don't know, what am I want now? Before my question then, I just wanted to say something about, recently I think it was Vishwaji from Akanda Yoga who talked about Sanskrit. And one of the things he said also, that this ancient language, that all the alphabet which was created from the vibrational sound of each alpha letter, which was to connect our subtle energies. So our Anandamaya Kosha, our subtle energetic body, soul, consciousness, etc., with the higher consciousness, the divine consciousness. So those sounds, those vibrations, that's our connection between the higher consciousness, the divine universal consciousness, with our energetic. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
No, it does, because remember the alphabet is also each one of the lotus petals on the chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's very nice. It all ties in.
Okay, so my question is about going through the goddesses. It just popped up. It's not about Kamal or Tripura Sundari specifically. It's just like I've been meditating with Kali right now. But I know we can gravitate to one goddess which is speaking to us more in the moment for whatever our purpose or needs or where we're trying to go on our path. But is there a recommended, let's say, order to go through to as a method to go through one which will bring into the other one? Because there is sort of like an evolution to each goddess. Or can it be just done haphazardly?
Of course, you can do whatever you want, but yes, there is a reason. Now, the Tantric 1 through 10 of the goddesses is a little bit different from the Hindu 1 through 10. All right, so if you want to follow the Tantric path, I've given you in the document 1 through 10.
Okay.
However, we are studying it partly to save time and partly to show the differentiation between manifest and unmanifest. I've paired up the goddesses, so they're out of order.
Mm-hmm.
But that was to show a different aspect of their qualities. But yes, if you want to go 1 through 10, start with Kali and then with Kamala, because they do kind of build upon one another in their qualities and their expansiveness of describing Mother Divine.
Okay, Makes sense. Thank you. Another thing, is it possible to see you?
No, because no, those are the technical difficulties. Mike, you were trying to get on, Terry, when we went through this whole thing. So
Okay,
no.
okay.
Sorry.
No problems. I missed all that.
One thing that brought up for me, Terry, your question is that as I go through the goddesses and read Frawley's book, I'm finding that I'm not, like, as I read it and I read about what element of consciousness each goddess represents, I'm like, okay, that's what she does. And then as I read the next one, I'm like, wait, didn't the last goddess do that? So what I think I'm going to do, because my learning style is just, what I'm going to do is maybe create like a chart or a table or something, and kind of try to figure out the distinctions. I imagine that's going to be a subjective pursuit, but if that appeals to anybody, I could share it once I make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then Sharon has a question.
My question is rather general. I'm just so fascinated by the 10 wisdom goddess, what they represent, how they interact, or not interact with one another, but how they intertwine. And I'm just wondering what gave, obviously, these goddesses have been worshipped in India and throughout the world for thousands of years. I'm wondering what gave rise to their development. I mean, it's so unusual when you look at other cultures and other religion. And India has huge matriarchal aspect to their culture, like along the west coast of India. And I just am fascinated. I was curious what gave rise to the creation of all these goddesses as compared to other religions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really, really interesting. And I also was intrigued by that. So I have to find the reference again, but I will find it for you.
Okay.
If we look at the evolution of when the Vedas first came into being, we look at the Vedic period, which then went into the Puranic period, which then went into the Tantric and medieval period, which then went into the more modern age of yoga. Let's just say yoga is a very encompassing concept right now. We see that in the early years, Shiva, the idea of Purusha, was dominant. And remember those words. This is why dualism and non-dualism is so important when you want to start to really study yoga, tantra, and all these schools of thought. You really want to wrap your head around dualism and non-dualism. Because with the Vedas, it was very non-dualistic. But that also meant that it was not, in some ways, it was not life-affirming, it was not world-affirming. Because the concept of the spiritual path was to experience Purusha. In Prakriti, it's not that it was in the way, but that the whole concept of Maya was really strong. Over time, and in some ways, a reaction to the over ritualistic practices that came into being, and with those rituals came corruption within the spiritual class in India. Within that, the Puranic period came, and then the Tantric period came, and Mother Divine rose to dominance. And here that was life affirming, that was world affirming, saying, hey, let's not just cut off and deny and sublimate your sense organs, but let's celebrate them as a way to understand what the Supreme Consciousness. And Mother Nature has always been, throughout time, labeled feminine. So here the Shakti goddesses came into being, the Hindu Shakti goddesses, and parallel the Tantric 10 wisdom goddesses. So, very simplistically, that's how that evolved and came into more dominance during that time. That they said, okay, let's look at the world now where Shakti and Purusha are the same, but let's give a more dominant role to Shakti. Does that help, Sharon?
Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Corinne.
And I'll find that reference for you and I'll send it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Annette, you had your hand raised, right?
Yeah, it's I was actually, if anyone has got more important questions, I just would ask that we see the link to Shri M video again. It disappeared before I had a chance to get a screenshot of it, and I'm not in that discussion group, so I haven't received that information elsewhere. So if it either could appear in the chat or appear again on the screen so I could get a picture of it, I would really, really appreciate that.
Would it be helpful to you, could you, if we put it in the YouTube caption?
I'm not sure what you mean by YouTube captions.
Have you seen that we've been uploading videos? Or Mom, maybe you could just copy paste it into the chat right now. I can't personally do that.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
Or
yeah,
share.
no, I mean, that's when you started talking about the YouTube. That doesn't mean anything to me. And I don't know if I've missed an email or just missed a vital piece of information that didn't make it into the group general, but all of that is foreign to me right now. So
got it. I think it's because you're not in the WhatsApp group, and I'll make sure to add you today. But
yeah, you've got my number in the chat.
Yeah, if you Google my mom's name or YouTube her name, you'll find playlists with this whole class and all the recordings. But I'll make sure you get that info.
Thank you very much. I know that you've been talking about recording, and it'll be in the recording, and I would expect to see that in my email box. And I thought, oh my God, I've missed all these emails. But now you tell me it's on YouTube. Fine, I'll go look there.
Great.
Karen,
and I'll get it over to you too.
Okay.
Karen, I'm sorry. Karen,
I just wanted to say
I'm sorry.
Wait 1 second. I'm sharing the screen right now with the YouTube.
All right, I got it.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Darren, were you going to say something?
Yes, Karen, I have a question for you. I tried to Google Corinne Alec in YouTube, and I only found 3 class videos, like week 1, 1, 2, and the second week. And thankfully, Corinne emailed me the link to Tuesdays. But what else how do I search for like other classes?
Well, there should be a playlist called like the 10 Goddesses of Tantra.
Okay.
A
playlist.
And I can provide more descriptions in the chat if you want, since you're in there.
Okay, that sounds good, because I want to watch the other videos when I have more time this week. So.
I'll go ahead and copy paste all of them in there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
And it sounds like Tuesday night is a must. I read all of your feedback and everyone's feedback, and it's, wow, I missed something great.
Sometimes, sorry, I'm still unmuted, but sometimes when you go to if you subscribe to a channel,
yes,
all you will see when you go to that channel is the most recent upload. And you'll see along the top, there's videos, playlists, channels, and I think there's another subheading. If you hit playlist, then all the videos should come up.
Okay.
That heads up, Annette.
Right.
So tomorrow we will entertain any questions and comments after you've watched Shri M. I think it's very enlightening, and it kind of goes back to Azade's first question was, what is Tantra? What is a Tantra practice? And I think we're learning what is Tantra and who are the goddesses and how they relate to us. This kind of learning is not linear. It's all kind of intertwined. It's just like when we follow the 8 limbs of yoga. Nobody just follows it linearly and says, oh no, I can't approach pranayama until I've mastered asanas and vice versa and stuff like that. So it's sort of all intermixed. And I think we're at a place where Sri M and his YouTube will be very, very helpful. So we'll entertain questions and comments about that. And then let's see if we can then discuss the 2 goddesses, Bhuvaneshwari and Dhumavati. I like Dhumavati very much because she's the grandmother spirit. So she's quite interesting. All right, anything else we'd like to mention? All right, thank you so much, ladies. Shall we share an Om together? So let's bring our hands to heart center, the abode of true wisdom and knowledge. This is the abode of Goddess Kamala and Goddess Tripura Sundari. Sharing the pranava one time, take a breath in. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Lovely ladies, thank you all so much. Hopefully we'll have our technical difficulties figured out. I got 24 hours to do it, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful Saturday. Bye.
Mom, maybe you can have Dad help you uninstall that Snap camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on it.
Why did you want it in the first place?
Because for my drama group that I'm in, I thought it might be good to have all those different filters so we can be different characters.
Well, there's got to be a way that you can keep it and use it. I think you just have to do some more, like maybe what I sent you in your WhatsApp, was that helpful at all? Select the up arrow next to the stop video, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah, no, I've done all that. The thing is, what I heard is that Zoom automatically defaults to Snap camera, but I thought I uninstalled it. So like right now, I'm going to try and get on.
Oh shoot, we're
Oh.